Fundamentally, we are confused. We have confusion. If we were not confused, then we would be able to perceive things accurately. But there is some type of necessary work that we all have to do in order to possess wisdom. We're not born with the innate wisdom, with an innate wisdom. We're born with an innate capacity to perceive. We're born with an innate capacity to choose and have willful action to some degree. But the correct understanding to have that wisdom is something we develop. This is the development of our capacities. In the same way that a baby doesn't know that the thing it's looking at in front of itself is its own hand. An infant has to come into contact with that knowledge, eventually understands that this thing in front of me is my own hand. In the same way, we need to come into contact with our own self, recognize that this emotion that I'm feeling is a projection of my own self. And it's something not based upon this moment and the facts of this moment, but based upon a traumatic experience I had many years ago. A pattern of behavior that I've hid myself within in order to protect myself from some harsh reality I was incapable of comprehending in the past. So fundamentally, it is part of the human condition that we have to struggle with this. But the degree to which we have fallen asleep and created such confusion within ourselves is not necessary. So we have to work to remove this confusion. And again, this occurs through a special willful application of our own consciousness. Even though the consciousness right now is mostly asleep, there's still some capability there. Just like if you were caught in a current of water that's strong, much stronger than you can swim. You may not be able to swim against the current, but you may be able to swim a little bit across. And by applying that ability in a certain way, you can get yourself out of that troubling situation. But if you didn't understand how to do that, you would just be swimming against the current. You wouldn't be able to get anywhere. In the same way, we have consciousness and we have a little bit free, available to us. But we have to know how to apply it. If we don't know how to apply it, nothing's going to happen positive. All of the momentum of our mind, these currents, are just going stronger and stronger to condition ourselves more and more. And the more we are conditioned, the more we suffer. The more that we are conditioned, the less we possess the ability to have a peaceful state of mind at any particular time that we wish. We're constantly assaulted by our own mental states, though this is suffering. And this is because we are highly conditioned. But we shouldn't become just upset about that, because the good news is that there's a way through this. We're not saying this in order to make anyone feel bad. There's a way through this, and that's why we're having this lecture. The fundamental thing is that we are confused. We attribute characteristics of things falsely. We attribute certain characteristics onto ourself. What is the nature of ourself? We view that in a false way. We identify with our thoughts and our feelings. We think that's our real self when it's not. We put characteristics upon things and people and situations in life which are not true. Unless we become aware and be very critical, very present, then all of those false attributions, they just start happening automatically, mechanically. So a lot of times we'll attribute things based upon one of these narratives that we hold, And it's a lazy, sleeping way of sort of understanding the world. Instead of seeing things as they are, you experience some fact, some moment of reality, and you interpret that fact in accordance with a narrative that you already enjoy. And we see this so strongly with, religious factions and political factions, where a basic reality is not being seen. Everything's being interpreted in accordance with a narrative. Nothing's being questioned at that level. But the biggest story we tell ourselves is something to do with our own self. We have to uncover the narrative that we tell ourselves. So that fundamental characteristic is that we posit the existence of a substantially real self that does not exist. This self that we just carry around, whether we've thought about it or haven't thought about it, we carry a sense of self with us at every moment. But if we look into those characteristics which we think we have, that it's our real self, if you untie it, they all just fall apart. And at the core of all that is just wind. There's nothing there. After you unwind all of your emotions and you unwind all of your thoughts, what's left? Nothing is left of that self that you thought you had. But there's something, which is that perception and that understanding. But ask yourself for moment by moment, where is this emotion coming from? So, for example, if someone offends you, you have to locate where the pain is coming from. Because the first thing we do wrongly is to locate it as if it came from the person. But it doesn't come from the person. It comes from us. It comes from within. It is an expectation that was not met, and we are attached to a certain mental state that we don't get. So if something happens that we're offended because a mental state has come apart and another one has been replaced that we don't like, and we blame the other person for it. So you have to critically analyze, where's the pain coming from? What I is hurt? The letter I in quotation mark. What ego is hurt? Where's this activity coming from? And what are the characteristics of this ego